That beat going crazy.
Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. I am back on the SV650s, the Suzuki, and today I'm going to attempt to get these carbs synchronized and get this bike running the way it should be doing. So the last video we managed to get the carbs cleaned up, got the carbs back on, we got the bike running, not running how I'd like it to, but running anyway. So there's a couple of things I need to check first before we can try and get into the sync. There's also something that I've noticed after going through the service manuals that would have been contributing to the rough running. So I'm going to show you guys that now, and then we're going to try and see if we can get this thing synced up. All right guys, so here is the bike. So it is running. I've had it running for like 2 minutes, but I'm going to have to get it running for probably about 10 minutes or so just to get the engine warmed up to temperature before we do the synchronization. But before we do that, I'm just going to run through a couple of things for anybody who wants to do this, things to look out for to get this thing done right. So one of the first things I realized when I was going through the service manuals and the connections for the fuel system, obviously I didn't get a tank with this, so I didn't have the tank connected, so I wasn't sure where all the wires go. So what we've got here is we've got a fuel pump on this bike, which is here. We have the fuel fed into the fuel pump, and then it pumps the fuel out on this one here, and that goes down into here and then gets split to that carb on the back and then down to this carb on the front. Okay, so there's a Y connection here. So into the fuel pump, out of the fuel pump. There's also a diaphragm in here which opens and closes with the it's like a diaphragm that opens as a vacuum. Basically a vacuum sucks air out through this hose into the engine here. So this hose basically is the vacuum that I'm trying to get the right word. Basically there's a vacuum that's created in the engine while the engine's running, and it will basically it'll open this diaphragm to let fuel out. So at the moment with the bike off, no fuel will be going down to the carburetors. Okay, so you need to have a negative pressure connected to here. So we can leave this here for our test purposes, so it already has its negative pressure, but the carburetor also has, because this is like something that's slightly different than the VFR. On the VFR, this hose is the way you would use to put your carburetor sync tool, but on this bike you actually have a vacuum connection on the carburetor itself, which is this hose. Now this hose is basically the hose that goes to that provides vacuum to the actual gas tank, which has another diaphragm on it. So as it is at the moment, this being open when I was running the bike is it would be an issue. I should have blocked this with a screw. Okay, so this is basically allowing air to be sucked in to the engine through this pipe. So this will cause, you know, some sort of issues with the revs hanging and stuff like that. So so when we're running it up, I'm going to put a screw on here. But when I'm doing the carburetor syncing, I'm going to pull this pipe off, and I'm going to connect this pipe to my syncing tool or meter, and this will read the vacuum from the rear cylinder. Now on the front cylinder, these carburetors, basically if you took this carburetor and flipped it around over here, then obviously this little inlet here would be on that side, and it is there. So we're going to look around the bike on this side. I'm hoping I can get to it. I might have to drop this radiator, but not sure if you guys will be able to see. Let's see if we can see it from here. Okay, yes, we can see it. So just underneath the throttle cable, you see there's a little black rubber cap right in the center of the screen. That black cap is blocking the is basically where our hose is going to be. So what we're going to do is pull that cap off, and then we can feed a hose onto that, and that will be where we get a meter reading for the front carb. So it's simple. It's just two pipes to the sync tool, and we've already got vacuum for our fuel, and that should basically it. We do need to have it running at idle of about 1300 RPMs according to the manual, so we will make sure that's set at 1300. Also, before I do it, while I've got it running now, I'm going to adjust the throttle position sensor. So we did play about with it the last time, but I've actually got some data from the service manual that explains how we tune this. So we got to tune this right before we do the carb sync. So I'm going to show you guys a quick video as I go through the manual, and then we're going to try and implement the technique and see if we can get this thing correct. So I've got the service manual here, which explains how we set up the throttle position sensor. So I do need a multimeter for this. So we can see the pin here, the 3 pins, and we need to do resistance readings. So we've got the resistance ohms 1, which will be between the left pin and the bottom pin, and the ohms reading 2, which is the right pin and the bottom pin. So this is the procedure. So it says, when removing the throttle position sensor from the carburetor body, install it in the exact position mentioned below. So obviously we did take it out for the rebuild, so I need to now tune it accordingly. So it says, measure the resistance ohms 1 between the terminals of the throttle position as shown in the right illustration. So the resistance should be somewhere between 3.5 and 6.5 kilo ohms. And then we do the same measurement again for the ohms 2. And that should be between, but actually doesn't say what it should be between. What it says is, open the throttle valve fully by turning the throttle lever. Under the above condition, the angle should have a resistance of let's move this out of the way. So ohms 2 should be 78% of the resistance of ohms 1. So basically there's a ratio between the two readings. So it gives an example. So if ohms 1 is 5 kilo ohms, then ohms 2 should be 3.6. So all I've got to do is whatever I get at ohms 1, I need to times that by 78%, and then that's the figure that I should be trying to adjust it to get to for ohms reading 2. So I hope that makes sense. Kind of makes sense to me, but we're going to put that straight into practice. So I put the airbox on just so it can run a bit better. We can still hear some popping. So the idle is still a little bit rough. So I've got my multimeter, and we're going to try and adjust this now. Right guys, so here is the connection. So I've disconnected that connector. You can see the diagram here. So we've got the bottom one, which is pretty much the common, probably the ground or something. And then we've got the far left one will be our resistance reading 1, and the far right will be resistance reading 2. So we'll go between the bottom one and the left one. We need to find the reading there, and then the bottom one and the right one should be 75% of the first reading. So let's have a look. I've got it into ohms. I set it to 20k ohms. See if you guys can see that. Let's see if we can set that up here. Okay. Right, so we're going to check the first reading, which is our baseline. So that will be the bottom one and the left one. So we got 5.28. 5.28. Now the other one's supposed to be 75 or 78% of that figure. So basically 22% less. So it's probably going to be somewhere like 3 point something. It should be 3.5 maybe, something like that, or 4. So we go bottom and right, and what do we have? 0.63. So we're way off. This should be somewhere between 3 and 4. So we need to do some adjusting with that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to loosen it and move it about, and I'm not sure if the first reading will change when I move this, or whether it's just the second reading that moves, because as I said, I've never done this before. So we've got to loosen these screws a bit so that we can basically move this. It sort of reminds me like your timing on distributor, where you've got to sort of move it to get it in the right place, and then you nip it up once you've got it where you need it. So let's see what we got here. So the whole thing does move. I'm going to move it up and see what we have now. So let's try the first reading again, and it'd be interesting to see if that still stays the same, or whether both of them change. Will make it a bit more difficult to do. Okay, 5.27. So it seems that this one stays the same no matter where you push it, which is good. 5.27, brilliant. So now what we need to do is calculate what 78% of that is, and try and adjust that until we get that number. So let's see what we got now. .64, 0.63. So if I move it, let's see if that changes. Let's see now. 1. Okay, so definitely changed. Let's move it here now and see what happens. 0.6. So the more I move it up, the lower the number goes. So I think we need to move it downwards. So I moved it all the way down now. Let's see what we get. 1.1. So we're sort of getting between 0.6 and 0.1. That doesn't seem right. Let's move the other side down and see what we get now. 0.6 again. Oh, interesting. So it seems the range that we're getting is not within the range that we need. I'm wondering if we've got a fault. Oh, I made a mistake. Totally forgot. We got to have the throttle open fully. I totally forgot about that. So I'm going to get a tie wrap, and I'm going to open the throttle and just strap it open, and then we'll come back and do the readings. Right, so I've done my little dodgy makeshift sort of tie. So this is throttle is fully open. There's a bit of cable. I've tied it tight and it's fully open. So now we can go back and check what the reading is. Right, so I'm going to measure resistance 1 again, just to see if that makes any difference with the throttle open. Probably doesn't. Nope, 5.27. So that is a constant. So let's see what the resistance 2 is now with the throttle open. 3.95. That made a difference. I'm just going to quickly get my calculator and see what we should be getting. Right, so I've done the quick calculation on the calculator, and we should be getting 4.11. So 78% of 5.27, which is what we got on R1, or resistance 1. 5.27, I think it was. Yeah, is 78% of that is 4.11. So we should be getting 4.11 on R2, or resistance 2. We're close, 3.95. I'm going to try to see if I can hold this with one hand and then move it with the other hand, if possible. This is where another person would come in handy. Right, 3.95. So if I push it down, it goes up. 4.11. 4.11, 4.10. I think that's close enough. Let's see if we can get that back in. 4.10. Yeah, I think we're happy with that. So let's see if I can tighten this up without it moving, and then we'll check the reading again. So I'll gently tighten it up. Right, that's one side. see what we get here. 4.1, 4.10.09. Give it a tiny push down. See if it will move. It went the other way. It went the wrong way. Okay, maybe the other way. Let's try that again. Gone back. If you're doing this, try and get someone to help you. I think it'll make a big difference if you've got someone to give you a hand with it. Okay, so that went up a bit too much. So let's nip it up a bit and see if it drops down again. Too much. 4.13. To be honest, I'll be happy with that. 4.13 is close enough for me. 4.12 even. That is very, very close to 2 decimal points. 4.12. So we are 0.01 off. So I'm very happy with that. So I'm gonna leave that there. So I'm gonna connect this back, and then I'm gonna run the bike up. Let's see if it idles any better, and let it run for about 5 minutes, and then we will proceed to do the synchronization. All right, let's start. Let's take this off before I forget. Take the throttle cable off. Let's take that off first. Right. Right, so yeah, it's still a bit rough. I've got the idle. I had to adjust the idle again after I did the changes here. The throttle response is not great at all. It lags. Well, I think that's to do with the carb sinking, and also possibly might have some leaks around the carbs as well. So I'm going to just make sure that all of these have been tightened up nicely and that we've got no leaks around the boots. And I'm going to get these sync cables connected up and just go for it. Cylinder 1 to the vacuum gauge. You guys can probably see that. Let's see what we get now on the back one. What's interesting is as soon as I've connected this vacuum line in and removed the old piece of hose that was in there, throttle response is spot on now. So I'm not sure if that bit of hose had a leak in it. I did put a screw in it. Maybe it was still leaking, or maybe there was actually a leak in that hose, I'm not sure. But for some reason, the throttle response is back. I'm going to connect this one to that one, get a reading, and I'm also going to connect it to this one and calibrate them together so that they're both working the same. I'll show you guys what I mean. Guys, so what I've been trying to do is to try and calibrate these, because when I got them I never actually checked them. You can calibrate them. There's a little hole there and you can get a little flat screwdriver and you can calibrate these, I believe. So what I've done is I've connected the vacuum to this line, and then I kind of closed it to freeze it at that point. Did the same with that one, gently closed it, freezed it, did that one, and they should, because they're all reading the same vacuum or the same cylinder, they all should be reading the same. But you can see this one here is sort of closer to sort of 27.5, 28. This one's about 20. This one's about, I would say, 19. And this one's sort of like 31. So they're all quite different. So I'm going to see if I can adjust these and calibrate them all to be the same. And that way I'll get a more accurate reading. Because if you're trying to read two cylinders, but your 2 meters are not the same, then it's going to throw off all your readings. So let's try and see if we can calibrate these. I think I know how to do it. We'll try and see. All right, so we've got these little caps, little plastic caps you can take off. I believe that you should be able to just turn this little dial and adjust these. So this one is probably the one that's the most way out. Maybe if we can get them all to sort of around 25. Let's see. I'm not sure if you guys can see that. My arm's probably in the way. So right now we're sort of 35, so if I turn it clockwise, right, so actually I'm going to bring it on that line of 10, so you got 0, 5, 10, so that's about 10. Let's see if we can get this, all of them at 10. This one doesn't want to move. There we go. 10. Okay, so I've set them all about 10. So what I'm going to do now is open these again so they go back, reset themselves, and I'm going to connect the vacuum from each one, and then let's see if they all read the same. So let's start with this one.
guys, I'm happy with that. I'm very happy with that. So as you can see, I run the vacuum and I slowly close the needle, and the needle's all set at roughly about the 10. So you can see how way out they were from factory. So even when I was trying to use these the last time on the VFR, you can show you that I needed to calibrate these when they came out of the box. So maybe that's a tip. Anybody who buys these sort of, I got these on Amazon, they're not the most expensive. Definitely do this procedure before you use them, because some of them were miles out and you're never going to be able to get a correct reading like that. So that's just, I guess, a little tip there for somebody. Right, so I'm going to connect up the front one. So I will leave the back one on this one, I'll connect the front one on this one, and then we've got to try and sync these two together. Okay, got that. So got that little cap off, little rubber cap. You need to make sure you put that back on. All right, so all you need to do really to do this is just loosen this radiator enough to get past it. There we go. Right, got vacuum hose in. Gotta make sure we don't kink it. And still on the reach. So this is okay. So right guys, we are ready. We're all set up. So we've got line 1, line 2. So this is the rear cylinder, that's the front cylinder. I need to take the airbox off to do this. So I'm gonna do that now. And the sync screw is actually on the other side, so you guys won't be able to see it. It's one single screw that you basically need to just turn to adjust it. So I'm going to be sort of trying to see it from one side, but let's see what we can do. Start up. Way out. This one's way up here, this one's way down there. Seem to have adjusted and synced them, but it seems like it's revving high, so I think we've got a vacuum leak somewhere. So guys, let me just give you an update what's happening here. So I did lose some footage here, so I'm just going to explain. So after I got those carbs, it seemed that they were synced nicely. All of a sudden, as soon as it got synced, I was getting 7,000 RPMs at idle. I would back the idle screw all the way out, no throttle, and I just couldn't get it to come down from 7,000 RPMs. So to me, it seemed like if I have a massive leak somewhere or it's overfueling. So I said I was going to look at the choke circuit. I pulled out the rear choke, which is easy to get to, and there's a rubber O-ring around that sort of seals it.
and that sort of just broke in half in my hand. So it seemed like that washer wasn't really sealing very well. And as soon as it broke, I remembered that I had a similar looking one, which was in the bits of carburetor parts when I was building the carbs, and it just reminded me of that. So I started to think that maybe the other broken one that I found was for the front carb choke, because it looked exactly the same. So what I did is I replaced the rear one with a new O-ring, and then I'm about to take off the front choke to check to see if it's missing that O-ring.
As usual, guys, nothing is never straightforward. I can't get to the back ones from below, so because the frame's in the way, so I've got to take the carbs out. So I'm just moving this throttle cable out of the way. Okay, I should be able to get to it now. Yeah. Yep, as I thought, totally missing the washer. So that was the washer, the broken washer that I found in that box. So we've got a new washer to put on here. Okie dokie, so got that back on now. Alright guys, so that is it. So put those washers in. Let's start it up now and see if it makes a difference. I'm pretty sure that is what our issue was. We haven't got 7,000 RPMs anymore, so now I can adjust the idle. I can find it. There we go. So at the moment, choke on now. Guys, we're sorted. All it was a rubber O-ring. So basically it was almost working like the choke was on all the time. Or maybe it was just allowing air to escape or to leak into the carb. So simple washer, which was missing on that one. And broken on the other one, so 2 new washers in there. So now we should be able to sync these carbs, which I think are already synced, but let's have a go. what you need to adjust. So that looks spot on to me. So let's start it up again. And what I'm going to do this time, I'm going to close the valves so that we can turn off and see where they stop. So I've closed those valves just to get sort of like a snapshot of where they are. So we can see this one here is sort of like about, if you look at the top meter, we're somewhere around 10. I think each of those are 14. And then if you look at the next one here, we're sort of about 14 as well. So I think, guys, we have got the carb synced up. So all right, guys, I'm going to put the airbox on because it needs the airbox really to run really the right way. So I'm going to put the airbox on, and then we're going to run it up and then just check that these are all working well. So I've put the airbox on now, and I'm ready to start it up, and let's test it out. Guys, as you can see, our carbs are nicely tuned up. The revs are staying nice and steady. Throttle response is there. The revs are not hanging anymore. It sounds good. No more popping and banging. It feels really smooth on the throttle. Really happy how this is running. Big success with the synchronizing. And good thing that we found that we had another issue, which was the choke. So again, that might help somebody out there who's playing about with something like this. So what I'm going to do now, I'm the only thing before I strip this bike down, because I'm going to do a full strip down on this bike and a full restoration. Before I do that, I just wanted to make sure the bike is mechanically sound, the engine and everything. So far so good. Happy with the engine. Gearbox is the next thing. So I'm going to put the rear set on, the foot level changer, whatever you call it, gear change, which is not on the bike. It wasn't on the bike. I don't know why it wasn't on the bike, but I'm going to put it on, make sure that all our gears are good. So I'm going to see if I can somehow put a seat on this thing and maybe just take it up my road or something, just see if I can you know, up my little quiet road and see if I can go through the gears and make sure everything's good. If everything's good with the gears, then this bike is ready to strip down. There we are. So what I've done is I've just put the bike back together to an extent. Just put the screwed the clocks on. Here you can see my petrol tank, which is here. put the seat back on as well. So yeah, I'm just gonna literally test it, the top of the hill and back down, and just make sure that everything, all the gears are changing, and then if I'm happy with it, it's time to strip this thing down. Guys, that is it. Our SV650 is running. Guys, this thing pulls like crazy. It really sweet ride. Only thing is that steering seemed very heavy, so I'm not sure. I feel like the tires are kind of flat. Oh yeah, look how flat these tires are. It did look like that to me. That's why. You can tell how flat these tires are. So that's basically why. So yeah, otherwise this thing is pulling really good, going through all the gears, no problem. So I'm very happy. So now guys, we are safe to strip this thing down and rebuild it. Result today, we managed to sink the carbs, get this bike running nicely. It still does pop and bang, but I've been doing some research and it seems that this bike is just known for that. I think this is just how it is. It sounds awesome though. So I'm not particularly complaining. It's revving properly, it's smooth, no hanging, power is there. It really has a lot of power. Actually, I was really surprised. I think this is like 70 bhp, but you know, it pulls really nice. So guys, that is it for today. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. So until the next one, please like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Take care. Thanks for watching.
Going crazy.